Hi, I'm Alethia Harris of Velosos. Welcome back to Sew Over 50 podcast on Sew Organised style. Grab a cuppa and relax with us.
I don't have it, but my sister has it. It's almost kind of like the traveling pants. This machine has traveled between all of us, and we call it the Old Faithful. But it's a Kenmore sewing machine. It's one of those heavy-duty, all-metal sewing machines. She still has it.
That's Alethia from So Much Talent, which is a Facebook group and also on Instagram. Thank you to the Patreon supporters of Sew Organised Style podcast. Your monthly contribution keeps me producing these episodes for free. Sew Over 50 intersects with all communities. We're a community that is so over ageism. Alethia, thank you for the research that you've done in developing all of the Black fashion moments that we've been posting on Instagram, because all the research that you've done for these publications about designers and sewists have been really great to share and learn about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing them. It's been eye-opening, very interesting learning different facts about those that I've shared so far. So it's a lot more to come.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, ma'am. I love the fact that you're sharing them so everybody can get to see all of the interesting facts of history, especially when it pertains to fashion and sewing. Any support, any help is grateful. I'm grateful for it.
So much talent. Alethia, what is the community about?
I just want people to have a love for sewing. If they do, I want a resource where people can come and get the information that they need. I want people to be encouraged about sewing, crafting, designing, whatever it is that they do, however their creative niche is. I just want them to have a space where they can enjoy it. And so, no, I'm not trying to grow a following. I just want it to organically grow. I enjoy connecting with people, especially if it's got anything to do with sewing, designing, anything in this genre. I love it, and I love getting into the minds of other people to see what makes them tick, what makes them creative, what makes them do what they do. That was the whole thought process behind So Much Talent, is discovering that there is so much talent. We used to hear these terms, sewing is a lost art, sewing is dying art, but it's not true. I think this was back in 2008 when I discovered that I was just fooling around and just thought I'd start me a blog. And at that time, I saw Mimi G, Erica Bunker, and Adrian Nixon, all of those. They were very, like at the very starting point then. But they were, just writing little things. And so I thought that was interesting. I'd never heard of a blog. And I was just trying to connect locally and thought I'd do something for us locals. It didn't take off, but it was when I found her blog and I ended up tapping into pattern review. I think because of Mimi G and Erica Bunk, I think that's how I found them. It was like a whole door. It's almost like Alice in Wonderland. Like she went, she found that little open door and she went in and found all this other new world. And that's what it was like. And so my network at that time was called CSRAPDU. And it was on a NEE network, but it was for my local area, Central Savannah River area. Once I found out about this blogging and all of this and all this whole new world of people sewing and showing their make, the name So Much Talent came to me because I thought, there's so much talent. And so I wanted to show the so much talent that was out there. That's what it's all about. Even with the lives that I do, So Let's Talk, interviewing people, it's just discovering people and sharing it with the world.
And I found so much talent through Miss Linda Fay.
Yes, Linda was one of our admin at the time. I love Miss Linda. One of your questions was about the Sew Over 50 in general, is about the older sewists. That's what I loved about her because she wasn't afraid to share her makes. She loved what she did and she did it beautifully. One of her sewing challenges every year was Tops That Pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you recall doing the So Much Talent Stash Busting Fast this past January. I think it was the first week we dedicated to Miss Linda, Tops That Pop, So Alone.
Miss Linda was very embracing.
Mm-hmm.
So she would find you and she would help you find so much talent and keep you sewing. She was really lovely like that.
She was, very much so. It was sad of her passing, but we miss her. She was a great admin. Actually, she did our Spotlight members,
Yes.
member Spotlight. So I don't know if you remember that segment, but she was the one that hosted that and she did it very well. She did some great interviews. We're trying to keep that going. My newest admin, co-admin, Deanna Satin, she's taken over that role now.
Do you have more than one admin?
I've had several admin, and so of course they come and go. Everybody's doing their thing and are growing, their own communities. I've had several. Right now, Dee is my co-admin, and then Lakia Comarin, Peppermint Mocha, she is on Instagram. She is a moderator for the group now. Yeah, so it's just the three of us.
Oh, lovely. Because you're a team, are you also local or are you a virtual team?
Dee and I are local. Lakia is not, but yeah, she's the only one that's not local.
What do you normally sew, Alethea?
Some may know that I am a dressmaker, alteration specialist, designer, mostly so bridal formal wear. So I make wedding gowns, prom dresses, cotillion gowns, and I only sew for women and girls. So that's generally what I spend my time sewing. When I do get some time for me, usually my time is sewing something that I need for the moment, you know,
Yeah.
somewhere I have to go. But that's generally what I'm sewing, making dresses and special occasion garments.
And it's always wonderful at the start of prom season, all of the work that you do, and then we get to see various photos of some of your customers.
I love sharing the work. The hard part is waiting to share it because when you make it, I want to share it right away. A lot of the sewing that I do is in advance of the event. So I have to take pictures and then I have to sit on them and wait and, and share them. There's still yet a lot of photos that I haven't shared. Those are mostly shared on my business Instagram page.
Did you start sewing at a young age?
Yeah, most people, when you listen to them, they started off at about the age of 8. That's the norm, average that I've heard, and that's true for me too.
Yeah.
I remember my mother is a sewist. She did make all of our clothes growing up, whether it's for church, special occasion. She made them. So I would take her scrap fabrics and sit right next to her on the floor, and I would make clothes for my doll.
Yeah.
I think at about 9 years old, 9, 10, she saw that I was really interested, and she sent me to a 2-week singer sewing class.
Mhm.
I was kind of advanced, at that point. I still have a picture of my first make. I've shared it several times. That's where I started.
And do you still have the first sewing machine that you ever used?
I don't have it, but my sister has it. It's almost kind of like the traveling pants.
Yeah.
This machine has traveled between all of us, and we call it the Old Faithful.
Oh,
But it's a Kenmore sewing machine. It's one of those heavy duty, all metal sewing machines. She still has it.
it's an heirloom.
It is.
Yeah. Alethea, where can we find you online?
All right, so you can find me on Instagram at So Much Talent. You can also find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, So Much Talent, and a So Much Talent Facebook group. The group is distinguished by the little emojis, dress pants, and I think a school of thread. But I realize some people don't like groups. So a lot of my feed from Instagram, because many people are not on Instagram, it goes to the So Much Talent page. I do have a blog, So Much Talent, but it's not as active. And of course, you can also find me on my personal page, Alethia Hudson Designs, if you'd like to see some of my work there.
How big is the So Much Talent group on Facebook now?
So Much Talent right now is about 10,000, a little over 10,000.
That's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people, yet I feel like it's small. But it's good. I think on an average, there's probably about 2 or 3,000 that's active, which is still pretty good. That's a pretty big group.
Some of the regular items that the group does, as you've already mentioned, is the spotlight and sewing challenges.
Yeah, we do the member spotlight, and we have to pick up on that because we've gotten a lot of new members in. We do the birthday wishes every month. Dee is good about that, celebrating birthdays. The challenges are the biggest things. Every month there's a challenge. Like I mentioned, we just did the stash busting fabric fast. We do that annually every year. And we've done that for about 7 years, where we fast fabric and patterns. We don't buy any of that the whole month of January. That's pretty funny. And right now we're doing For the Love of Ankara. The group can sew any African print fabric. And if they're not wanting to sew African print fabric, they can sew anything red because it's also National Heart Association Month.
Well, that's really good. People have got an alternative.
We want everybody involved,
Yeah.
We want to include everybody.
And that's part of how you set the challenges up as well, because you do ask members what they'd like to do if you've got particular ideas.
We do periodically we'll take polls. right now we do have the challenges. I haven't shared this with the group yet, but we have challenges out throughout the end of the year.
Mhm.
In two of those spots, we will ask for member support and what they would like to do. Periodically, we'll have just a random sew along.
You're a professional dressmaker designer. What state is your sewing room in at home? Because do you sew at home or do you sew at your business?
Actually, Maria, my home is my business.
Okay.
I've carved out my living room, what was my living room from day one. I knew that I would have a dedicated spot for my sewing. This is my business for Alethia Hudson Designs. And many people don't know that, like this, I also work outside of my home. I do have a 9 to 5. I actually work for a bridal salon as a sales manager. So this is where, when I come home, this is where I spend my time in my little studio.
Wow.
To ask me what state is in, are you asking me what does it look like? Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
it looks
busy.
like that. Yeah. Well, let me say it's well worked. It's well worked then.
Yeah. So does your family, they're used to the living room being your business, aren't they?
Yes, it's set off from everything, so I can close my doors and nobody has to see a thing. So yeah, they're used to this being my spot. And the way it's situated, when my customers come in, they come in my front door in the foyer, and I'm off to the right. So I quickly direct them into my studio. So they're away from the rest of the house. And that's the way I wanted it. I wanted it detached from everything else. Everybody can keep moving around and live their life and keep moving about the house without being interrupted.
No one would step on a sewing pin and say, I'm like that here because I close the door and my iron is downstairs. And I check to see every time I come back upstairs, I check the carpet to make sure there are no sewing pins.
Just a little story.
Okay.
My husband will not come in here many times. He'll stand at the door like as if there's an invisible shield because he don't want to step on pins. I've moved the carpet out of this room because we had a flood some years back, and I have vinyl linoleum now. The rest of my house, the majority of it is hardwood flooring, so they can see it. And he's got an eye to spot those pins, and so he'll say, "There's a pin," and it's almost like the plague. Like he, no, there's no chance of them stepping on pins. Now, thread is a different thing. That's a whole different story.
Oh,
Like I've got thread throughout the house on everything, mixed in my washing clothes, everything.
well, you've got a pre-wash fabric, don't you?
Yeah, when I do, think about it like this though. The most of the stuff that I do is bridal and formalwear.
Yep.
So I don't really have to pre-wash much of that. My things, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. So now that you're on Instagram, how did you discover the Soap 50 community?
I believe it was through the stories, and I thought it was very interesting to have a community that catered to the over 50 group because we see so much of, everything else and everybody else, but I thought it was very wise and very sensitive to cater to an older group of sewists and not just women, but
Yep.
men as well. So I thought it was interesting and that piqued my curiosity.
They do a good job in making sure that older sewers are visible on Instagram rather than invisible.
Exactly. I think one of the posts, what I really liked about it, because there's a lot of sassy over 50 sewists, a lot of fun and quirky sewists, and I think a lot of times as you get older or younger people might think older people have to sew a certain type of clothes, they have to look a certain type of way. But there's some fun and sassy over 50 sewists, and that's what I loved about it. And that's what really drew me in, seeing some of the makes, their poses, and lots of fun poses. That was a lot of fun.
But also on So Much Talent, there's again quite a big group of sewers. And again, they are fun and they have a really lovely way about showing their individuality.
You're absolutely right. I love that my community, as well as a diverse community, so it's of all ages, of all skill sets, skill levels, men and women. And there's one gentleman in particular that, well, two gentlemen in particular. Well, they're both tailors, but one is, self-proclaimed tailor. He does his own suits and everything.
Yeah.
And he will generally show us his technique step by step. I love it when people are not afraid to ask questions, if they're not as skilled or they need help, get stuck. And we all get stuck on things from time to time.
Yep.
So I love the fact that it is open like that and we can all support each other.
That's what I've noticed is there's a lot of support. As you said, when people get stuck, they'll put their hand up, so to speak. They'll put a post up, and there's a lot of assistance with responses. So it doesn't just fall on you, Alethia, it's the whole community.
That's so true. And that's what I love about it. I mean, I can maybe count on one hand when we have incidents where, there's bad critique, or shameful posts or whatnot. But for the most part, as long as we've been there, it's been a great community and very helpful.
They are helpful. So, Alethia, what advice would you give people who are about to sew again after not sewing for many years?
I would say just do it. Sometimes we overthink things and try to figure out, okay, what should I start? Where should I go? Or we try to keep up with what we see now with the challenges and everything. I would say just find one project, focus on it, and don't try to keep up. Just enjoy the process and just get back into it.
Thank you. Alethia, thank you for coming onto the podcast of Sober 50. I've really loved being in the So Much Talent Facebook group. And I know that anyone who's listening to this podcast will also start to tap into So Much Talent either on Instagram or Facebook, because I've learnt a lot and there's so much support there. And that's because of your leadership and the team that you have to moderate.
Well, Maria, thank you for having me on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for shedding light on So Much Talent. And I just want to thank you all at So Over 50 for all that you do, because you're inspiration to all of us. So I appreciate it.
To me, you're a very inspiring sewist, and you bring people together and are such a giving person. Personally, thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you for saying so. I appreciate it.
This episode of Sober 50 podcast on Sew Organised Style was produced by me, Maria Thea Harris, with permission of Alethia of So Much Talent, sound by bensound.com. If you want to provide a guest post for Sober 50, make sure you direct message Sandy at the Sober 50 account on Instagram. You can subscribe to Sew Organised Style podcast, but with an S, not a Z, on all good podcast apps. Make sure you go back and listen to our free Sober 50 podcast archive. And if you can, please consider supporting the production of this podcast on Patreon. We look forward to joining you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.